Hey everyone, I want to welcome you first to this Q&A video. I've reached a follower/subscriber milestone. I haven't decided what that milestone is because I hit it a while ago and I never made the video. And also Twitter followers, I guess I'm nearly going to hit a milestone there. Yay. So I decided to do a Q&A video, mostly because I get a lot of questions and answers, and I think quite a lot of the advice would apply to more than just the person I'm replying to. So with that in mind, I really wanted to just invite people to come ask me questions, and I'll answer them. So happy follower milestone. I have 1.78k and 2.78k on both platforms. So let's call this a 300 to 2k subscriber milestone. Perfect. Absolutely amazing. Peak YouTuber. Good job. I actually find the idea of these very, conceited. And a bit oh, look how great I am. Look, I'm amazing. I have so many people who look up to me. And I actually think that's not really, that's a responsibility. Anyway, my thoughts aside, I do think that a lot of people wanted to ask me questions, and I thought I'd make a video anyway. So fuck it, we're gonna do it, even though I hate it. I posted on Twitter that I don't know how big YouTubers cope, because being a YouTuber is hard. Peak first world problems. And I really don't know what I'm doing. So, I took your cues, and I'm going to answer some A's. So I took questions on Twitter and the YouTube community tab, which I'm surprised I get so many people commenting on. I don't do it on, myself, so I don't know why you guys are doing it. But thank you. Thank you for doing it. And I also invite people to answer questions anonymously. I chose to do anonymous questions as well because I think that some people maybe don't want their name attached to things. I don't want anyone to feel like they can't ask what might be termed as silly questions, because I don't think that helps any of us learn. And we're all here to learn, and including me. So now I have some Q's. I might also have some A's. Maybe. We'll see. So these questions are questions that I picked. So originally, I didn't think anybody would actually want to ask me any questions. So I thought I'd collect some questions I could talk about. And it turns out a lot of people wanted to ask me questions. So thank you for proving me wrong. So the ones in the black text aren't questions necessarily from specific viewers. They're either questions I get a lot, or DMs, and I don't really want to share DMs. So, how similar are CTFs to the real world? I actually hate CTFs being used to advertise learning how to do bug bounties or penetration testing in general, because they are so vulnerable to everything. I think it gives you a little bit of false hope. When you do the CTFs, you're tripping over bugs, right? You find an XSS everywhere. You might find an SQL injection in a login form. And I just don't think that's very realistic to what bug hunting is actually like, which is a fuck ton of nothing and then a moment of glee when you realise you've got something. And then that glee turns into a feeling of dread when it doesn't work, or a feeling of ecstatic, happiness when you realised it does work. And you can write a POC and then you submit it. And I don't think it represents that cycle of disappointment. CTFs are all about the wins, but bug hunting is all about the working really hard for a long time and then finally finding something, rather than tripping over bugs everywhere. So I don't really like to recommend CTFs, although I will recommend some CTFs later. I think the sooner you can get off of CTFs into real targets is the second you're bug hunting will just go from newbie to kind of beginner to advanced beginner so quickly. So I got this question from, I'm going to really mess up these words, Vipin or Vpin? I'm going to go with Vipin. Hi Katie, love your channel. As a beginner bug hunter, which strategy would be better to find a first bug? To look for different types of bugs on a single target site, or one vulnerability type i.e. idle, on different websites? Thanks. So thank you for your question. I think this is probably where I differ from quite a lot of other people. A lot of people will say, yeah, focus on one vulnerability like XSS or IDORs and try it on everything. I actually think as a beginner bug hunter, you should instead focus on one, a website that you know the functionality of really well. You know, if you already use it in your day-to-day life, that will really help. Then to look, or kind of put your self in the mind of a developer and go, okay, if I was a developer, how would I be building that? And that will teach you more about how a website is actually built up, or a mobile app. It doesn't really matter. The point is you want to think to yourself, okay, this is an API. How do I know it's an API? Because my gut tells me it is. And I think this is implemented in that way. How do I know? Because I feel like it should be. If I were doing it, that's how I'd do it. And it's developing your intuition, which is probably one of the most important skills that I can't teach you in a video. So my kind of advice on this is to not just focus on a single type or one vulnerability type, but instead to focus on a website you know very well and focus on a bug that you're very familiar with. So if you've watched a lot of videos on IDORs, you should focus on that. I don't think it's good to swap between website to website to website to website very quickly, because I don't think you learn enough about how a website works in order to really understand the value you'll get, like the value of the website. So it's really hard to understand the impact of a bug if you don't understand what the website does. As for one vulnerability type, I actually think that might be a bit demoralizing, because if you search for, let's say, XSS and you can't find it anywhere, you're just going to give up because it seems so easy. So I don't like to go with either kind of mentality, but if I had to choose one, I'd be telling you to look at a single target site that you are already familiar with, and also applying a small subsection of bugs, you know, business logic, IDORs, XSS, whatever bugs you feel the most confident with, that's what you should be doing. So mentorship. A lot of people ask me this. They're like, will you mentor me? And the answer is no. For a very simple reason. I'm not advanced, and I'm not an established person, right? I only just finished my degree. I had like a regular 9-to-5 job for about 6 months as a data scientist, and I've been a PhD student for like 2 years, and I don't think that's enough experience for me to go and help like mentor you. And I've only been bug hunting for 6 months, right? So I don't feel confident that I could tell you how to be like if you want to do like because there'll be a question further on about cybersecurity careers. I don't have the experience to tell you how to hunt bugs, because I'm just learning myself. Like a lot of these videos, when I make them, I'm actually learning more about whatever I'm talking about. And that's why I really enjoy making them, because I learn a ton about how to find specific bugs. One time when I was making the video on business logic errors, I was looking through the disclosed reports, and I read a load of them, like so many disclosed reports. And from that, I was like, you know what? I think I found an IDOR. A business logic error. I didn't even realize it. And I went to check the program. The program was closed because it was a challenge thing. So that made me sad. But I learned something from that experience, like I didn't know before, and now I do. So I won't mentor you because I'm not that experienced. And I'm still learning myself. Why no live hunting videos? I'm not the only person to get asked this question, by the way. Do a real app off YouTube and share the link for us to watch. I get DMs asking me to do this. I get people offering me money to get me to do this. I get people telling me to do a live stream so they can watch, asking me to do this. I get people just saying, oh, why don't you make live hunting videos? And I'm not the only person who gets this. I think the Cyber Mentor and Stoke also get this very often. And the answer to that is because it's illegal. But not necessarily illegal. It's very unprofessional, because I treat my bug hunting like a profession. I don't want to be, disclosing a bug to essentially the world before it's disclosed to the company, right? Or the organization, because it's not really fair on them, right? announced to, I'm even like 1,000 people, right? I don't know who watches my videos. I don't know who you are either, Stephen. I don't know if you're a malicious actor, if you're all just wanting to learn bug bounties because you want to make some extra money, or you've got like a family to support and you don't get paid enough. So I can't morally or professionally do that because I'm disclosing a bug to 1,000 people who I'm sure are all very nice, but I don't know, before I disclose it to an organization. And the only time I really do that is when I start to do my kind of demos in my videos, right? And even then, I'm not a huge fan of doing the demos because it does make me feel uncomfortable in case I find something and maybe I don't notice it, right, until later. And then what I've done is I've just exposed, a bug without realizing it. And that's why you'll never get any bug bounty hunters agreeing to do live hunting videos, because it's not very good, and often it can get you in some serious legal issues as well. And even if you were say, okay, record the entire process, put it up after a bug's been disclosed, that could actually still be like a huge issue for a company because you're exposing quite a lot of their assets to quite a large organization. So there'll never be live hunting videos from me. Absolutely not. In summary. My top 5 tips for newbies. I get asked questions of this a lot, so I thought I'd distill it down into like 5 tips. Number 1, just give it a go. You guys, I'm going to empower you and tell you right now, you are good enough to have a go. Are you going to be amazing? No. Are you going to earn $20,000? No. Are you going to learn a fuck ton in like 5 minutes? Yes. It's so important to stop with the theory and the CTFs as soon as possible and you just jump in. You will learn so much. Second one, take notes all the time. Take notes. What are you thinking? Why are you thinking it? How you think the app works. Draw pictures. Whatever works for you. Having those notes will become invaluable, especially if you then start to look at, say, other programs or even the same program. You can find the same vulnerability in multiple places if you have steps on how to reproduce it. And I actually got this tip from a very successful hacker that I ended up just sitting next to on the bus in Vegas, and he used to do sort of data sciencey stuff. And I was like, what are your tips to go from data science? He says, take notes on everything. I have a huge notebook that covers every vulnerability I've ever found, so I know how to reproduce them and what my thought process was. And I thought, genius. 3, focus on easier bugs. Like, don't get lost in trying to find a filter for an XSS that will take you like forever and you just don't understand why it's not working. Focus on something simpler, something you can like visualize in your head. Don't chase after dreams of RCs before you've even gotten your first bug. And don't focus on bugs that you perceive to be harder because there are less people doing it, because they're harder bugs, because you probably won't be able to implement it correctly. What am I on? 4, get involved in the community. So the hacking community on Twitter and on Discord and on Slack channels is incredible, right? It's so friendly, so helpful, and so understanding to newbies that I think if you don't participate, you're really kind of setting yourself down. There's the Hacker 101 Discord, and part of my New Year's kind of resolutions was to spend a little bit more time in there. So if you want to ask me more questions, you can do so and get involved in the community at the same time. Perfect. And 5 is don't rely on CTFs to teach you everything. Equally, don't rely on books to teach you everything. Don't rely on a course to teach you everything. You need to get your information from so many different locations. You need to do books and CTFs and maybe a course and also give it a go. You'll learn a lot if you combine your learning efforts instead of just using a CTF or just watching my videos. So those are my top 5 tips. What does it take to reach your skill level? And I've titled this slide Exposed, because here's the thing. I'm kind of dumb. I'm not very special. I've not been doing bug bounties for a long time. I've not made a huge amount of money. I'm not an expert. I realise I'm sitting here giving you a slideshow, and that seems like I'm an expert, but I'm not an expert, right? I'm a sort of an advanced beginner myself, and I make these videos because I understand what it's like to be a beginner, and I think it's really important for me to talk about what I think beginners actually struggle with and what beginners need to hear. So what does it take to reach my skill level? I don't know, just give it a go. I found my first bug at a live event. I don't think that that's impossible to reproduce, getting your first bug. And then after that, I got 2 more. And then I got, like, as of the most recent live hacking event, I have like 30 bugs now. So it doesn't take much to reach my skill level, but trying. How'd you get invited to a live event? I get asked this all the time. I can't really answer this question because I don't work for HackerOne. So how I got invited was, I've been active in the kind of tech mentorship space. When I was at university, I used to run a computing society. I used to do a lot of outreach. I used to do a lot of kind of student tech, a lot of meetups, a lot of networking. And I got referred to by some friends who now work around London after university, and who said, yeah, there's this mentorship thing going around, there's a Google Doc, I thought you might be interested. And because now I do a cybersecurity PhD, I wasn't really interested in cybersecurity at university, but now I do a cybersecurity PhD. People are like, well, why don't you just come and have a look and see what you think? And originally I wasn't even going to go. I forwarded it to one of my friends who's really interested in penetration testing, and I was like, I don't really know if I want to go. And my friends kind of forced me to, though. They're like, you better sign up. I was like, okay. And that's it. I went and I did well because, I don't know. I went and did well, and then they wanted me back, and now they continue to want me back. And I think quite a lot of that has to do with my attitude. Like, I'm really positive. I'm really willing to help people. I am really willing to talk to people, and I'm always willing to learn. And I think that has a lot to do with why I keep getting invited back, because I'm good and friendly. So, pro tip, be very friendly to people. Can you please guide me in how to get a career in cybersecurity? No. Unless your question is specifically about how to do a PhD and how to get into academia, I cannot help you. When I was at university, I never considered cybersecurity as a career. When I was sort of working, I didn't want to do cybersecurity. I wanted to get paid and go home at 5 o'clock every day. And when I started my PhD is really when I started to get more involved in cybersecurity. So no, I mean, I've only just started my career. I can tell you a ton about how to get a PhD, if that's what you want to know. But I can't really tell you stuff about careers in cybersecurity. However, there are many people who actually do work in cybersecurity and who aren't PhD students who can. So I highly recommend joining the community and asking them, because they know what they're talking about. Why don't I post my videos on Reddit, etc.? So I actually, surprisingly, I get this question a lot, and a lot of people tell me, oh, your videos are so good, and I can't believe I didn't know, and you need to publicize your videos more. And I get a similar one with, like, you should put way more ads on your videos. Don't put any ads on my videos, but I should put way more. And the answer to that is simply that I'm not that egotistical. When I make my videos, I don't assume that they're the best thing and everyone wants to see them. I assume that a few people want to see them, and they will know when they recommend it to other people whether or not the video is good enough for them to share it. And I'd rather that be my viewers' decision and my subscribers, and of course all of you guys, to make the decision and go, you know what, this is a good video and I want to share it with somebody. I think they'll really enjoy it. I think they'll find it really useful. And I think that's a better attitude to have. So I don't like to share my videos. But if you do share my videos, and if it gets like tons of upvotes on Reddit or whatever, you owe me the gold. Okay, if you get gold from my videos, you owe me gold back. That's how that works. So these are the end of kind of the questions that I was worried I wasn't going to get anymore. So let's talk about every other question I've ever got. So, Shankar Lal, I'm going to go with that, Shankar asks, what are some good sites to get hands-on practice / training of penetration testing for free? Thanks for your help in advance. So thank you very much for your question. I think it's really hard to get hands-on training. However, I do know some really good free resources. So the Cyber Mentor has just put out a network penetration testing course on, I think, YouTube. I think it's his Udemy course, which is not free, but I think that one is free. Anyway, he's got a really long video on his channel, and that goes through all of network penetration testing. So that's super good. CTS for practice, Juice Shop and Hacker 101 are great places to start there. And then there's also the Hacker 101 videos, which kind of present the kind of theory before you do the CTF for the practice. You can get the Bug Bounty Web Pen Testing 101 free on HackerOne, which is a book which goes over like the very basics of like how the internet works. And then honestly, my favorite is like disclosures and write-ups. I love reading them because they take like a few minutes to read, and you can glean so much from someone's thinking process and then how to approach it. I think I might make a video on how to read disclosures and how to read write-ups and how to get the most out of reading them. But that's what I've got for kind of general resources, specifically hands-on stuff. I think CTFs are probably the best place to go. However, I do think the Cyber Mentor has exercises, but I'm not sure if it's for his free course. I think that might be for the paid course. Regardless, I think giving it a go. I'm going to say this repeatedly, but when you actually go on a target and try some of the techniques, you might learn a lot, even if you're unsuccessful finding anything. And this doesn't apply to like regular pen testing or like the offensive security certification thing where you actually have to do like Kali Linux stuff. I don't know anything about that. I'm dumb. Right, Anonymous asks, or Cat Eating Sushi, I think is that cat. I wanted to just, words. I just wanted to ask, luck is really important in bug bounty, ? And if yes, why is it so, ? Because I heard that some people really found bugs very quickly than others without knowing enough. Thanks for reading my question. Good luck for upcoming videos. So, thank you very much for your question, and thank you for your good luck. I really appreciate the support that you give me and everyone gives me whenever they say good luck and nice comments. So I have to say, I do actually think luck is quite important for bug bounty hunting. And I don't know if this is like a accepted viewpoint. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, hard work, you gotta work hard and you gotta get on that grind and whatever else. And I think it's important to recognise that actually luck does play a big part. You know, you choose the right program that works really well, that has a bug in it, that you can actually find. You've got to get lucky that no one else has found it before. And I think it is important to recognise there is an element of luck. But you know what? Luck can never beat working hard. Like, just because someone got lucky and hit their bug on sort of day one, doesn't mean that somebody who's works for 30 days can also find something. They just need to spend that time. And I think the people who really do focus on bug bounties quite hard actually learn a lot more than people who find stuff very quickly. I mean, I found my first bug after only a few hours of bug hunting. I had no previous experience in penetration testing when I found my first bug. I got lucky, and I just have like quite a lot of experience before I started doing bug bounties in web development. So sometimes it's not necessarily luck, it's a mixture between luck and a little bit of, how to say it? experience that's transferable into bug bounties. So why is it so? I think it's just because, there may not be a bug that a beginner can find in any one given program, but beginners might still look for them there. So I don't think luck is really important in a way that you can't really find luck, if you know what I mean. But I think you can always work harder and at least up your chances. If you're resilient, if you keep trying, you will find something eventually. And maybe you'll get lucky and find something very quickly. Common bugs I found by Stinky Pete. So this is an interesting question, because I used to find a lot of business logic errors. Nearly all my bugs were business logic errors. But I've really tried to do more IDOR testing, because I think that IDORs are really easy bugs to find to start with. And they're an easy way to just go through every single endpoint. And now I'm using spreadsheets to take notes. I'm keeping an eye out for them more. I'm always noting down any kind of ID. I'm looking for things that don't quite look like IDs, but could be. So IDORs have definitely become more common since I've upped my game. And CSRF as well, but I'm still learning a lot about CSRF bugs at the moment. Alright, sorry about that. I just had to deal with something. Right, Lover Not a Fighter asks, are there bug bounty programs geared towards newbies? Does a bug bounty prepare you for a job in cybersecurity? So I'm going to answer one question at a time. So, bug bounty programs for newbies. There's not many that are specifically aimed at newbies. I can't think of any, but it doesn't mean they don't exist. However, I do think there's certain types of programs that are better for beginners. I talk about this in another video, but having quite a large attack surface but that has individual apps that are quite self-contained in functionality is quite good for beginners, because it means that you can easily pivot to different apps, right? You have one account and maybe you work on, if you're going on Yahoo, maybe you work on Yahoo Fantasy Sports, and then you decide, I'm not really getting anywhere, so you open up Yahoo Mail. It's quite good to be able to have that swap, but you still use transferable knowledge. Like if Yahoo Fantasy Sports is using an API, that you can say, okay, then the Mail app must also use an API, and that can kind of help you to conceptualize how that all works together. But a lot of it is personal preference, but I do think that getting with an established program as a beginner is quite good. You work with triagers who are super professional, super willing to work with you, who aren't going to dismiss you, and who, if you don't really explain something very well, they might ask for more information rather than just closing a report as NA. And that's kind of my opinion on bug bounties geared towards beginners. If there are some, please do leave them in the comments. Let's help out Lover Not a Fighter and share some really good bug bounty programs. Second question, does bug bounty prepare you for a job in cybersecurity? Now, I've never had a job in cybersecurity, so I can't really answer it from that point of view. However, I will talk about how it's helped me in my career. So my career is, I'm a researcher, I'm a PhD student, and I want to go into academic research. So I want to work for a university, I want to be a lecturer, I want to be writing grants and papers and that kind of side of cybersecurity. So actually bug bounty's been really good for my career so far. It's certainly more interesting than my PhD is. My PhD is quite corporate. But bug bounties, it gets people listening, it gets people interested, they want to ask questions. And it's an interesting hobby, and people are always really impressed by what I'm doing. They're like, oh, that sounds really cool, like you're a hacker. I'm like, yeah, sure. And it helps as an academic, and I'm sure most people don't care about this, but as an academic, you don't want to be stuck in the academic bubble of what, is happening in academia, especially if you deal with students, because students don't become academics usually, they go into the workforce. It's really important to be able to say to people, hey, bug bounties are a thing. Bug bounties weren't even a thing several years ago, right? They've only really become popular recently. And they're used by, things like the US Air Force and big companies like Verizon. And it shows that I'm not just engaged with cybersecurity on this academic level. It also shows that I'm engaged as into the industry and talking to practitioners, as we like to call people. So it's very different kind of preparing me for a job, but I think it's going to continue to help me in my career, and I'm going to put it on my CV. So there's that. Right. Katie, can you explain web testing sockets in next video after API testing video? Now, unfortunately, I have like an entire video schedule of when stuff has to be recorded and edited and uploaded and done by, so I can't really make it the next video. Interestingly enough, though, I was going to look at WebSockets in my API because there are APIs that are based in WebSockets, but I just decided not to do it because I thought focus on RESTful APIs and GraphQL APIs, and I'll look at doing it. A lot of my videos are based on what I personally know things about, which really limits stuff like explaining things I don't know, basically, because I want to make sure my videos are accurate, up to date, and interesting, and I don't want to give you guys false information or information that's kind of half complete. And I think I understand I want to do a lot of research, and that means videos take time to research. Honestly, like, most YouTubers are sitting there complaining about how long editing takes, and I'm like, yeah, my editing takes like, I do like maybe 1, maybe 2 takes of videos, and they're just like, okay, edit, done, perfect. But the research portion of my videos takes a really long time. I've been doing a CSRF video for like, I don't know, weeks. But that's because I want to make sure that what I'm explaining is correct, up to date, is not going to be out of date very quickly, that I'm explaining it in a good way. So I'm kind of limited to the videos I can make because I have a list of videos I want to make, but also because as a limit to my own knowledge and how much research I have to do. So I'm always open for video suggestions. However, next video is probably not going to happen. It will happen eventually, and I will look at it, I promise. So I thought this was a really interesting question, actually. Anonymous asks, hi, I'm stuck in choosing program. When I choose the target, I'll take 2 days and get bored and go to another one. Can you please suggest steps for choosing a better program and finding interesting things with less time? And thank you for the great content. I loved your RC video a lot. Lol. So thank you, Anonymous, which I think is Sushi Cat again. Thank you for your comment on the RC video. I was very worried putting it up. But to answer your question, I think what you're experiencing is not necessarily boredom. I think it's frustration. And I think what might help you specifically in what you're struggling with is to go in with a plan. Like, if you're finding that you're just clicking through and not really finding anything, maybe for you, you need something more structured. So maybe you should say, okay, I'm going to spend my first day doing recon on my target. I'm going to look at clicking all of the buttons, for example. And on day 2, I'm going to look specifically for idols. And on day 3, I'll look specifically for XSS. So I don't think you have to choose a better program. I think what you need to do is just have more structure to how you're approaching something. And this is true for quite a lot of people that struggle with choosing the right program for them. Sometimes it's less the program's fault or even their fault. It's more that they don't feel like they have a lot of structure, and because when we do bug bounty hunting, no one's really telling us what to do, right? No one, as much as people really want me to tell them the exact steps they have to follow to find a bug, it just doesn't happen like that. And introducing more structure to your bug hunting might make that process a little bit easier. Some other advice, if you really do decide, look, I'm done with this program, I want to move on, something else. Maybe go with something you're familiar with, a website a company A large APIs can be really good. I'm about to release an API video, which I'm actually recording after this one. They can be really useful to finding bugs like idols. A large app with a ton of functionality is difficult to follow, but if you're really good at taking notes and really good at focusing, that could be really useful as a kind of something to look for. getting into a niche like mobile hacking, you know, it's not that difficult for a beginner to get into mobile hacking. It takes some time, but you can do it. And you know what? Just in general, finding bugs takes time. 2 days is probably not enough time to really explore an application, really understand how it works. Not that you need to know everything about how an application works, it's just that 2 days, you know, you're probably not doing 8 hours on it. You're probably only poking it for a bit. But I completely validate your feelings of frustration and boredom when you're just not getting anywhere. I don't want you to feel like I'm invalidating how you feel there. How can I be ranked on HackerOne? So, I'm going to give you a pro tip on how to become ranked on HackerOne very easily. Are you ready for this? Are you ready? Are you ready? Hack things. I know. Big tips. You know, on HackerOne, you're ranked by like these 3 different criteria. You have your reputation, which is applied when you get like a bounty, when someone gets triaged. You then get signal and impact, and those are related to how much bounty you get and how severe a bug is. And all those go together for you to be ranked. So I think reputation is the main one though. Making videos. So Anonymous Cat with a Phone asks, what made you want to make videos for the community? So thank you very much for asking this question, because I have thoughts on this. So when I was at 702 and I was part of the mentee program, I helped quite a lot of the other mentees kind of navigate through Burp, and I realised that after you get past the how to set up Burp, there's not really an information on how to do kind of what do all the tabs do and how should I use them and what should I be using them for. And I realised there was no real content about how to make that jump, so I made it. And I got a really good reception. I got quite a lot of big hackers who were tweeting out the video and retweeting me, and that was super cool of them. And I then sort of had this realization there wasn't a lot of content for people who were maybe already familiar with bug bounties, who knew what they were, who'd maybe done some penetration testing, but who hadn't found the bug yet. And I realised there wasn't a lot of content directed at those people specifically. That the beginners' content was so at such a low level, it just wasn't going to be very useful for them. So I wanted to make a video that focused on how to go from no bug to having your first bug. And then that's kind of what inspired me, and I really do, like, I owe so much to this community, right? I've got so many friends who are always willing to support me. I've got so many of the big hackers who are really willing to talk to me and chat with me. The people from HackerOne have been amazing sponsors of me. They've been really good at, and when I say sponsor, I don't actually mean they're paying me. I mean that they've been really good shouting me out and being really cool, and just really supporting me in that way. And I've also made friends with people in the community who aren't necessarily bug bounty hunters, but they're also kind of cybersecurity professionals. And I just realized when I was going through all of this, I was like, you know, this is part of my community, and I owe so much to the people before me who have done this that I also want to contribute. So that's kind of my experience. Also, because I want to do more lecturing, I can make slides really well. And I thought, you know what, there isn't enough fucking people pretending to be an expert with fucking slideshows on YouTube. Oh my god, I hate myself sometimes. Okay, returns on investment. So this was asked by Steve, and he says, what was your best and or worst return for a bug bounty target in terms of time spent to payout received? So actually, I'm going to answer 2 questions here. Because I want to talk about kind of failing a little bit. So the worst time for kind of payout was definitely, so I really want to get into hacking mobile, and I'm not very good at it at the moment. I have an iPad that is jailbroken and I can put it through burp. It's not as crazy as like proper people who hack mobile, right? So it was just before I was off to I think it was Vancouver, but I'm not sure off the top of my head now. And I spent like 3 days trying to fix my hacking iPad. Like, I couldn't get the jailbreak to stick, and I was using the 2 different jailbreaks, and it wouldn't stick, and I couldn't get Cydia to work, and I couldn't get all of this stuff to work so I could actually use it for bug testing. And I finally got it working, and I'd been stressed for days, and my poor partner had to listen to me going, "It's not working, why isn't it working? It's making me so sad." And I downloaded the app, finally got it working, got the cert pin sorted, and what did I find? Fucking nothing. I spent 3 days fixing my iPad, another 2 or 3 days actually hunting for a bug, only to get nothing in return, and finding a very minor bug that the customer just wasn't interested in. So that made me sad. And the best one was, at 7:02, I went in with Justin and Tom into Justin's room. We had like a little hacking in hotel rooms, which happens a lot during live events. People go into people's hotel rooms and hack. So I was there for maybe 10 minutes, and I was just exploring the app, and I just was like, oh shit, I found something. And then Justin and Tom were like, no, and I was like, yeah, I think I have, and I showed them, and they're like, oh my god, I can't believe you found that. But it ended up being a dupe in the end, but you know what, I found it in like 5-10 minutes, and that's really cool to me. That's really, really cool. And then I think the other one for like best return, but not because of money received, but instead high achieved, as in feeling on top of the world. And it was my very first bug, and I was sitting there and I was like, I think I found something. And then my mentor was like, what have you found? And I was like, and I showed him what I found. He was like, the look on his face was like that of glee, and I was like, oh shit, I found something. And, you know, I didn't get paid out that much for the bug, right? It was not a huge amount, but you know what? That made me feel fucking amazing. I'd never done it before, never done a CTF, never read about bug bounty hunting, maybe knew from kind of a developer side, but not a cybersecurity side. And I found one I was like, fucking incredible, amazing. And that was definitely the lowest amount of time to biggest high and having a great time. I'm gonna try. I'm very sorry in advance. Abhimanyu, Mishra, there we go. Abhimanyu asks, though I have found some bugs, I still face difficulty in understanding the working of the web app. What's the best way to understand it? Honestly, really great question. Thank you very much for asking. So you have 2 routes, and there is one route that I prefer. So the route I don't prefer is just keep hacking, just keep poking, and you'll learn through osmosis. Now, where I think you should learn is, I think the easiest way to learn how web apps work is to make them. You know, learn how to program if you don't already. If you do, you know, pick up your favorite programming language and make a web app with it. Like, do something like the functionality of Twitter and use something modern, like if you're looking at PHP, because that's the language I program in, look at Laravel, look at Symfony. If you're looking at kind of JavaScript, then, you know, there's many JavaScript frameworks out there. I'm not going to say anything because it will date my video. And I think that's easily the best way to understand the workings of a web app, is to make one yourself, and you will learn so quickly. Like, half of the reasons why I found bugs is because when I look at the request, I can immediately place in my mind how I would program it and what I think I would do. And because I've got quite a lot of experience in web development, I started when I was about 11 or 12, and now I'm 25. So yeah, I have a lot of experience, and that really helps me to place my knowledge and understanding in the world of hacking, even if I'm not that experienced in web penetration testing in general. Right, so this is a very technical question that Anonymous asked. I heard that looking up the ASN of your target can help in finding vulnerabilities. Often though, you're returned with a CIDR range. Should you scan the entire CIDR range, or just the IP address associated with that belongs to that CDR range? And it's a really technical question, but I thought I'd answer it because I promised to. And this poster is asking, should I test all IP addresses in the range under the assumption they all belong to the same organization? And my answer to that is no, you shouldn't. And this is a very simple, you might go out of scope. You know, sometimes something like Yahoo might do a star.yahoo, or they might be open to vulnerabilities that are on different IP addresses. However, I really don't think you should go out of scope, like, by far, and I don't think actually testing that is going to give you that much information. You know, even if you do find something that's not going to be on a core app, it's probably not going to have any vulnerabilities. Maybe you'll find, like, server vulnerabilities, like as in the server's using something out of date, but I don't think that's great for a beginner. So that's my answer. I got this question like 3 times in 3 different forms, and that is what to do after recon. Now, I don't do recon because I asked myself the same question. However, I do know the correct answer to the question. And really what you do after you do recon is that gives you the surface area of your target. So sometimes you might hit gold as soon as you start by finding a subdomain that's kind of unsecured, or it has some kind of information on it that shouldn't be in public. However, often it just becomes another app for you to hack. And then you go through the normal steps of what does it do, what kind of bugs you're going to think you're going to find, doing some kind of initial test to see whether or not they might have them, and then actually hacking the app. I will say, if an app looks particularly terrible, like it looks kind of old, if the CSS uses tables, if it looks rushed, like the spelling mistakes, you know, bad web design, hidden inputs are the big one, where you have a hidden input, they don't tend to be used anymore, not as widely used, I should say. And I think those are the ones to look out for. However, what you're really doing when you do recon is you're not actually finding bugs, you're just understanding what you can hack on, and you have to choose which one stands out to you. That's what I look for. As you become more advanced with recon, like especially people who do like big recon, they have like in their brain, they can recognize something doesn't look quite right. And as for like dealing with data in particular, you know, you want to make sure it's easily accessible, that you can look it up. I mean, I don't do automated recon for the same reason that you guys are asking me these questions. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with that. I just look at it and go, wow, that's a lot of subdomains. And I don't take anything from it apart from that's a lot of subdomains. But the aim of recon is really to better understand the target, and what you're looking for is the attack surface. So if you've got data that repeats a lot, maybe you want to look for, you know, are those joined together in one app, for example? I don't know. Inspo. By Blilka? Injector asks, what inspires you to hack? And this is my hamster, Knossos. He inspires me to hack. If you want to learn more about Knossos and why he inspires me to hack, and why a hamster inspires me to hack in the first place, I will be putting out a full video with the hamster story, which is a story I've told on my HackerOne panels about what inspires me to hack. And it's this magnificent beast. He escaped his cage, and it is quite the story. And this is him when he was a little bit younger. He looks way older now, and he's like all ruffled up because he's an old man. But this is when we first got him. Anonymous asks, when hunting for bugs, how do you know when to stop testing a particular section, say input field, and move on to the next? And I think that moving on is something we should definitely be talking about. So honestly, I don't really know quite yet. I don't really understand why my brain says to stop. I tend to run through all of the options in my brain, have I tried this? Have I tried that? Have I tried this? And see if inspiration strikes. What have I tried? What haven't I tried? I'll maybe look at some disclosed reports and see what other people have tried in a particular situation. But I don't really know. I think when to move on is something that beginners can really struggle with because you don't have that intuition yet of knowing there might be something there or there is something there. Anonymous asks, do you suggest any companies, in brackets, bug bounty programs, even if they do not pay, such as IBM, especially those which are not known for bug hunters nowadays? And the second question is, what kind of vulnerability do you suggest to look for as a beginner bug bounty hunter? So I think, honestly, that's up to you. I will say you should be paid for your labour. If you work hard, you do deserve to be paid. Honestly, any experience hacking on a target will make you a better hacker. However, I'm very aware there are strong financial motivations for a lot of people. A lot of people live in third world countries and who, maybe $1,000 is not a lot in the US. That might just be, someone's rent in somewhere like New York. However, in somewhere like India, that could be several months of someone's salary. So I respect that there's a lot of financial motivations there. And you can definitely pay on a hack on a program that will pay out, even as a newbie. You have a lot to give. You don't need to resort to doing your labour for free, basically. So second question, my biggest suggestion is always APIs and IDORs. They're often not necessarily caught by automated tools, and they often require a human to manually test them. Some of the best hackers who look for IDORs specifically still use manual testing methodologies. They don't use automatic tools. Impact is super easy to prove. You don't have to write a long statement about why it's important to the company. And it's just easier to write up. It's very easy. A POC, you do this, you remove the cookies, and look, it works. A lot of people like to suggest XSS, but I don't think they're common enough nowadays to be a good first bug. Often you have to write custom payloads, you have to really understand how web app works, you want to actually demonstrate impact, you need to find a CSRF to really prove it. So yeah. Talish Garg says, please give us a video on your first bug and your journey. So I actually have already made that video. However, I will summarize it. My first and second bug was on Uber during the H1 4420 live event in London. I was invited as a mentee, which I talked about in a previous question. The first one was an IDOR in one endpoint, and the other was a business logic error in the same endpoint. So not a huge bug. I got $1,000, not a huge amount of money, but nice. And I want to give a shout out here because Cody was my mentor and he was amazing and an inspiration, and he was incredible. Anonymous asked, when did you realise that bug hunting is your thing? So I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I kind of thought my first bugs in London were a bit of a fluke. I came home and I told my fiance what happened. I was like, look, this has happened. He was very excited for me. And then I was like, it was a fluke. It's definitely a fluke. And then they invited me back to Vegas. And I was kind of panicking. Like, oh my God, they're spending a lot of money on bringing me there. And I'm going to be terrible. And it's going to be a waste of their money and a waste of their time. And my fiance was like, hey, maybe don't go with that attitude. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Sometimes you just gotta own it, right? You gotta fake it till you make it, and eventually you'll make it. So I went to Vegas anyway, despite my kind of reservations that HackerOne were maybe wasting their money on me. And you know what? I found 2 more, and I was over the moon. I wasn't expecting to find anything. I was expecting to spend some time by the pool, relaxing, spent most of my time indoors, panicking, trying to get more bugs sorted, and I was at the end of the event, and I'd still waiting to be paid out, and I was just kind of hanging around, waiting and hoping to get a decision on one of the bugs and getting a bounty for it. And Cody came up to me and he just fucking told me, you really need to hack outside of live events because you're good at this. And you know what? That was the confidence boost I really needed at the time. I was convinced that I was just doing this because I was lucky. And after he said that, that's when the realization hit me that, oh my god, I'm actually kind of good at this. And then when I came out and made some videos, you know, Cody, he's such an amazing mentor to me. And he was like, oh, Casey's going to be one of the big hackers. And you know what? Having that kind of confidence, having other people tell you that was really important to me, for me to realize that actually I can do this. And it was also when I came back from London, I started doing the Hacker 101 CTF. And I was just going through the levels. I found it really easy. And I went into work and the person who'd come with me, and one of my colleagues to London, was like, oh, how did you get on with the CTF? And I was like, oh, I found it really easy. And she was like, I couldn't complete the first level. And I was like, oh, I am good at this. And I just had that realization that despite the fact that I had so much self-doubt about my abilities, that actually I knew what I was doing, vaguely. So, yeah, that's the story. Anonymous asks, I think it could be interesting that you give us your opinion on what the top 5 types of bugs that a beginner should focus on. I think that open redirects and idles are 2. So thank you for your opinion. I disagree with you. I don't think open redirects are good first bugs. Mostly because a lot of bounty programs won't pay out for open redirects. They're often considered out of scope or borderline out of scope. I agree with you on IDORs. My updated list in order would be IDORs, great first bugs, super easy to find, like doesn't require much technical knowledge, very easy to spot where they are. Business logic, once again, easy spot where they are, easy to do without having super technical knowledge. Then information disclosure, once again, is just a case of noticing it as you're hacking anyway. And then XSS and CSRF. Do I think those are great? No. Do I think that they certainly are in the beginner category? Yes. With an asterisk attached. And the asterisk is if you can find them. Because XSS is becoming more and more rare. Because more people are aware of them. CSRF is becoming less common, but I don't think rare at the moment, especially when you have a lot of web development frameworks that have like CSRF protection on them. So there you go. Anonymous asks, what tool do you recommend? And I've titled this as if we see burp, we have no choice but to stan. So obviously Burp Suite, Burp Suite, Burp Suite, Burp Suite. It's a credible piece of software. You don't have to pay for it. The free version is fine. If you really want to support, free and open source software, you have Zap Proxy, which is provided by OWASP. But I really recommend Burp. I think it's the single most important piece of kit you will ever have when you do bug bounties, and you should, stan it. Be a Burp stan. So not necessarily a tool, but knowing and having some quality word list is also really helpful, whether or not that's to enumerate through APIs, whether that's to do some directory brute forcing. Having good word lists can really help. Right, Anonymous asks, what is the future plans for YouTube? Thank you for your question. I have thoughts on this. So I want to finish up the Find Your First Bug series. There's probably only going to be 4 or 5 more videos in that specific series because I don't want to have this never-ending Finding Your First Bug until I get to 90 videos in, and then I can talk about RCs as a Finding Your First Bug. I really do want to make it kind of not necessarily a timeless series, but a series where it was here is what Finding Your First Bug was like in 2019, 2020. And I want to have a playlist that I can redirect people to if they say, how do I find my first bug? I want to say, here you go, here's all the information you need. And then after I kind of finish that, I want to start talking about more advanced resources and more kind of intermediate stuff, basically. Change the level up a little bit. And then update those finding your first bugs when more first bugs become more common, right? As we see less of bug A, look at bug B. And when I want to highlight these I want to do a highlight series which I've named Bug in Focus, which would kind of talk more about more advanced bugs like RCEs, to introduce them and kind of expose my audience to these more advanced concepts. Because I think it's really important, even if you are a beginner, to still read content at a more advanced level, because I think it'll teach you a lot about how experts think, and you can gain a lot from that. Also, immersing yourself in bug bounty, I'm going to use the word culture, / community, is a great way to learn very quickly. I definitely want to talk more about kind of my life and talk about stuff like going to live events, what the experience is like, and then maybe talk more about kind of professional skills as well. Like I did my video on RCs, which was actually about goal setting. And actually I think making those kind of videos about, you know, the professionality side of bug hunting could be really interesting. I also want to make a CTF this year, just as a kind of passion project. So I thought it might be interesting to document the process of making a CTF and the kind of design decisions and seeing it go from inception to reality. And there's lots of videos I want to make. Like I've still got a ton of videos I want to talk about. I think one of the big ones I want to do in the intermediate stuff is talk about bug chaining, because that's something I really want to learn this year and really get some good bug chains. So there's quite a lot of videos I want to make. And although, you know, maybe I stop making the exact for beginners tutorial style content, I hope that beginners will still find a lot of value as they become, you know, they watch that series, they're no longer beginners. They find their first bug, that's it. They can now read more advanced content. And then it's not just find your first bug, it's find your second and third and fourth and 50th, right? So Arthur asks, do you still find SQL injections in modern sites proposed by HackerOne, for example? I think SQL injections are really rare on modern websites. The risk is very well known. A lot of development tools, frameworks defend against it. Even stuff like PHP have kind of built-in SQL injection protection nowadays. Maybe older apps with legacy APIs which run concurrently with modern APIs might be good sources. But honestly, I think you're wasting your time if you're looking at SQL injection. If you do find it, I think you're looking at such a specific case and a specific idea that you can't, like, it won't work. You know what I mean? Anyway, I think they're super rare. I don't think you're going to find one. Now, this was not in my Q&A channel. Q&A thread. But Cyan Bahatasharji? I'm going to go with that one. Says, in your Q&A, I was going to ask the question that no one should ask a PhD candidate. So, how is research going? And I actually love this. Thank you for thinking of my stress levels before asking the question, how is research going? But I thought I'd answer it. Because you know what? A lot of people think PhDs should be suffered through and they're a slog. But actually, I think it's really important to enjoy your PhD. So, my PhD, my research is going really well. I can't share much of what I'm working on before it gets published. So you will definitely notice that when I'm not talking about bug bounty, I don't tend to talk about much else. And that's just because in science, you don't really talk about what you're doing specifically until it gets released. And until it's published and it's been peer reviewed and stuff like that. Because I don't want to share something that's not true. And it's up to the academic, the scientific community to decide on whether or not my work has value. But yeah, I have some great results. I'm really excited about the results. I'm so thrilled about them because they've been a long time coming, and it was a very weird experience when I'd just been working on this one problem for like a year, and it worked, and I was like, oh my god, it worked. It actually worked. I wasn't expecting it to work. So that was just amazing. And then I'm currently writing up the paper for a conference later this year on the results. So that's really, really exciting. I'm really excited the direction the work is taking at the moment, and the potential to do more later and do some follow-up work. And it's really interesting to see how other people are interested in what I'm doing, especially in the kind of machine learning cybersecurity space. I've had so many good comments on my work at conferences and stuff. I actually wanted to kind of apply some of my research work, the code I've already written, and maybe work on a bug bounty themed data set. I saw one that went up and I started it on GitHub, and I was like, that might be interesting to do some work on. It's kind of like not in relation to my actual work, but doing some of the same techniques that I apply in my work and apply it to a bug bounty data set and see what the results are like. Because I work with natural language, and bug bounty reports are great sources of language. And I thought it would be really interesting to see how bug bounty reports are written and what people talk about, and, you know, what level they write at, that kind of thing. And see what interesting stuff I could uncover, basically. So this is another question by Anonymous. I like to hack things, and I think bug bounties would be a fun side gig to make money. How much time would you expect someone new to bug bounties to put into one, something like $500 a month? And the answer to that is, I have no idea. And I can't say without knowing more about your background. If you've already got experience hacking and you've already done some penetration testing, you'll probably don't have to put that many hours in to get $500 a month. You know, some people pick it up quickly and they can easily transfer their previous experience into bug bounties. And some people just don't. They find it very difficult to take penetration testing and put it into bug bounties, because with penetration testing you often have better communication with your target. Maybe you have a physical side as well. I mean, I'd probably commit do as much as you can, considering other commitments, you know, work, school, family, any other responsibilities, and your own stress levels. Like, you have to not spend all day at the computer. It's very exhausting to do that, and I can't recommend it. But with considering your other commitments, you know, see what happens, then you'll see what your rate is. You know, maybe it only takes you, I don't know, a week to find a bug if you do 2 days a week, right? And that might easily be your $500 a month, or maybe you're finding little bugs. And, you know, when I'm actively hunting, it's like 1 to 2K, but I take a lot of breaks off actually bug hunting because basically my job is really tiring. And I don't have the energy to come back after doing brain things all day and come back and do more brain things. So I tend to do it during my breaks from work, essentially. And I don't rely on the income. I basically take it as free savings. And I spend a lot of it on yarn to do knitting. So this is the second to last question here. And this is also by Sayan Bhattacharya. There we go. Solved. And he's asking 2 questions here, but the tweets were out of order, so I decided just to throw in the whole thing. So the first question, he says, please sort the bugs as a criteria of experience required to find them, e.g. beginner, reflected XSS, IDORs, practice, question mark, advanced, etc. And essentially gives us a blueprint or map of what we have to learn. And I can't give you the answer to that question, because I think by the time you get more experienced, you'll know better what kind of bugs you'll find that will play to your strengths. If you've just got a brain that's super wired towards hardware stuff, obviously maybe your practice might be hardware hacking, but your expert might be web hacking. You know, I've met some people, like one guy I met at a live hacking event. He'd never touched BURT before, right? He just did code review. So for him, even using BURT was quite an advanced technique, but most of the other things were quite easy for him. So I just can't tell you that question. I think the more you learn about what you know, the more you can build that out for yourself. And I think that if I was doing it, I'd maybe say beginner would be IDOR, business logic, practice might be XSS and CSRF, advanced might be whatever, etc. Yeah, I think you have to build that blueprint for yourself. I find it amusing that you say you will have better experience with them, and the answer to that is that I don't. I am not an super expert hacker. I really am quite new at this. Yeah. So the final question there is about CTFs. So you tried Pico CTF and loved it. Do you have any recommendation what CTFs I should try next? Also stating which CTFs difficulty rating would be very helpful. This is most important as most of the CTFs I find are for experts. And Live Overflow also said we would not be able to solve CTFs for many months. But that would not be suitable for learning. So knowing about other CTFs like Pico CTFs would be immensely helpful. So I think the confusion here comes from CTFs as designed for experienced hackers to get prizes essentially, and beginner CTFs. Now, for beginner CTFs, my recommendations are the OWASP Juice Shop and Hacker 101 CTF. However, I think if bug hunting is what you want to do, not become an expert CTF player, you really can't rely on CTFs. You really need to move away from CTFs as soon as, because it will make it more difficult for you to make that jump to bug hunting from CTFs. I highly recommend any CTF that is an actual thing, like a product that someone would make, like an entire web app. But you don't find many of those. They tend to be kind of jumps from one thing to another. And you know what? I can't tell you because I don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are. I don't know if you're a hardware person or like a network person. Actually, those CTFs would be easier for you. Or if you're looking at web hacking, in which case the other CTFs might be quite difficult. I would say if bug hunting is your goal, Hacker 101, Juice Shop, and as soon as you can complete like the Facebook style level in Hacker 101, go to Real Target. Like, just get out of there. Maybe go and use CTFs as a learning opportunity instead. Like, oh, I want to learn how to use GraphQL, so I'll look at the Hacker 101 CTF on GraphQL. And finally, we have this question by Innovative Noob. So I wanted to end with this one. And he asks, as a beginner, what would you recommend to start in bug bounties? Is it go hunt for one type of bug, or study everything and keep messing around with the application? And whatever method you choose, like these tend to be this distinct, do this or do this. Whatever method you have to choose has to work for you. Whether you go to hunt one type of bug, or knowing the signs for a bunch and keeping an eye out. But fundamentally, you need to hack. If you want to get started in bug bounties, you need to hack stuff. Doesn't matter what approach you take, as long as you're hacking stuff, it's fine. So that's it. That's the end of the video. I hope you found this useful, interesting, or very boring. I hope that I answered some of your questions and concerns you had, and I hope you found it really interesting. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.